Today we are going to learn how to create a table. And what is a table? A table is basically a text box. You create a table with the text tool, and the advantage of a table is that you're able to put a lot of information into one area, one type box. You can see in this example here in this table, you have various photos and you have text inside one graphic or text box. Let me click on this for a sec and just kind of move this out, and you can see that everything is contained within this table. Now, this is a much more efficient way to create graphics, especially when you want to link graphics together. One of the advantages of a table is the fact that right now I have 5 columns here and 2 rows. This is a row horizontally and these are columns vertically. And if I wanted to add another column or row, I can easily do that without having to redesign the entire table. Here's another example of a table, and this example is a little chart, if you will, and you can see that there's a number of different things going on in this. We have colored boxes, we have photographs, we have text. In this particular table, we have 5 columns, again, vertical columns, and this time we have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. The first row, the second row being the photos, the third row being the boxes of text, and then the last row being this black line that goes across. In any event, again, this is a table and it could be moved off, and you can see that everything is contained within this one graphic. So that's the advantage of creating a table. It's very flexible, it's very easy to make revisions, and it will save you a lot of time. So let's get started. How do we create a table? I am going to start with a new file. So I'm going to create a new file here. And I'll go to File, New, Document. And by the way, I'm using an older version of InDesign, so if this does not look like your version, it's okay, because all of the features in mine you have. Okay, so I'm going to start with just a regular 8.5 by 11 page. I went to File, New Document, and I'm going to open up a new document. And that's what we have. And so again, I'm not going to create this entire graphic here, this right here. There's a lot of text and there's a lot of other things going on with this, but let's concentrate on the table first. Okay, so as you can see in this, I'll use this as an example. We have a kind of rectangular box here. We're going to have 5 columns and 2 rows. Okay, simple enough. So I'll go back to my blank page and I'll grab my text tool, because again, remember, we make the table with the text tool, not with the box. And I am going to just kind of arbitrarily draw a text box. Okay, so I'll draw my text box, kind of a rectangular text box. I get my flashing cursor prompt. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to this area up here in the menu called Table. Tables are a very powerful feature of InDesign, and they've dedicated one entire tab to tables. So I'm going to click on Table, and I'm going to insert a table into this text box. Okay, when I click Insert, you can see that I have a number of options here: body rows, columns, header rows, footer rows. For now, we'll make it simple. And in the example, what we had were 5 columns. So I'm going to click 5 columns. And as far as rows go, we had 2 rows. So I'm going to come down and click 2 rows. And you can see here, if I kind of zoom in, we have 2 rows and 5 columns. We'll kind of talk about this later as far as header rows and footer rows go. Kind of another lecture for that. We'll click OK. And what you see now is my text box filled with 2 columns, 2 horizontal columns, and 5 rows. Now, let's talk about how to adjust these rows and columns. Okay, again, you have to be on your text tool. And when you're on your text tool, and if I hover over the bottom line here, and I just click the mouse and drag, you'll see that the bottom line adjusts. It goes down, but the top line up here, the middle line, doesn't move. Okay, so just by hovering over, clicking, you can drag that down. Okay, so I'm going to drag this down almost to the bottom of the text box. Now, if you go beyond the text box, you're going to see a little overset icon here. And that's the same as, rolling up a window shade on a box of text. And when you have more text underneath, you're going to always get the overset icon there. So I'm going to undo that. And so I'm going to just make sure that I drag this down not quite the distance of the text box. Okay. So now I want to adjust this line here. Now, if I move this, if I click on this and move it, notice how the bottom line moves also. Okay, everything is moving. So I don't want to do that. I just want to move this line right here. And so what I'm going to do is, there's 2 keys when you're working with a table. One is the Option key and one is the Shift key. And if I hold the Shift key down and I move this line here, only this line moves. Okay, so just remember that the Shift key is the key to move a line independent of the other lines. Okay, if I don't hold the Shift key down, I'm not pressing the Shift key, and I move this, all of the lines move. Okay, so this is something that you're going to have to kind of get used to. You're going to have to play around with this, but just remember that the Shift key is the key that moves lines independent of each other. So I'm going to move this, let's say, around this size. Okay, again, I'm going after this type of look here. Okay, where I'm going to have 5 photos across and 5 areas of text in these boxes down here. So these are kind of square and these are kind of rectangular. Okay, it's not going to be perfect, but you get the picture. Okay, now you can see that in this table I have my flashing cursor prompt here. If I hit my Tab key, the Tab key will tab that cursor over to each box. So Tab, 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 goes down to the next row, Tab, 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 and so forth. If I hit the Delete key, it goes back to each, I'm sorry, it's the Shift Tab, I believe. Is it Shift Tab? Yeah, Shift Tab tabs me back 1. Okay, so that goes back 1, and then Tab goes forward. I can highlight the entire text box by clicking and just highlighting, clicking and holding the mouse and dragging across. I can highlight the entire text box, or I can highlight a single box, okay, or 2 boxes across, 3 boxes, so forth. I can highlight 1 row by going down. I'm holding the mouse down while I'm doing this. I can highlight across and down and get these 2 rows and columns and so forth. So by holding the mouse down, you can highlight different cells within your table. And these individual boxes here are called cells. The entire rectangle is called the table, and the table consists of individual cells. So what I'm going to do eventually is insert photos in these cells and then insert text in these cells right here. Now a cell acts very similarly to a box. if you were to take the box tool and draw a box, you fill it with in the same way. So if I wanted to fill this box with color, I would just simply highlight this box, holding the mouse down. I'm going to go over to my swatches palette here and just choose a color, and you can see that, oh, I'm sorry, I have the outline chosen here, so I want to not use the outline. I want to use the fill color, so I'm clicking on the fill, and then I'll change the fill color to something like blue. Okay. Now, even though I fill this box with blue, it looks like it's orange because it's highlighted, but when I click off, it will be blue. So I clicked off, and that's blue. So again, filling a cell is very simple. With color, you could just highlight it, click on a color over here, green, for instance, click off, and you have a green fill and a blue fill. I'm going to undo that, Command Z and Command Z. Okay, so that's how you fill a table. Okay, we're going to start with some a very basic part of the table, inserting text inside of a cell. And so I'm going to insert text down here, and so I'll click and insert my cursor right there. And notice where the cursor is flashing, and I'm going to zoom in here. You can see that the cursor is flashing a little bit to the left of this line right here. And it's kind of like right on the top of this line right here. Well, you can change where you want your text to start in this cell. If I started to type anything, you can see where it's typing. And then as I hit the end of the cell, it jumps over and makes my, makes individual lines and so forth. Okay, but where this text is positioned is determined by the default settings of where the text starts in relation to the left margin and the top margin here, and we can change that. Let me show you how to do that first so that you know how to align text. I'm going to highlight this text here. Let me just highlight just the text, delete this. And what I'm going to do is go up and show you where you can make that adjustment here of where the text is going to start. So we're going to go up to our table menu up here. And what we're going to do is we're going to set the insets to these boxes here, and we're going to set them for each box. So what I really want to do is I want to highlight each one of these boxes so that whatever I do affects all of these boxes at the same time. Otherwise, I'm going to have to do it individually for each cell. So highlighting all the cells that I want to have this setting, and I'm going to go up to Table, and I'm going to go down here to Cell Options. Now under Cell Options, you have these choices here. We're going to go to Text, and we're going to see here that we can change the insets of where that cursor is going to be flashing. And right now it's set at 0.0556. I'm going to increase that to, let's say, 6.25. I'm also going to click the preview button here so I can see what's going on. Let's go up. With this chain link, whatever I change here will change in all of these fields. If you want to change just one field, just uncheck the chain link, and then whatever you do here will not affect these fields over here. But I want them to affect everything, so I'm going to go up maybe one more to 0.125. Notice how they all changed here. I'm going to align the text to the top. I want the text to be aligned to the top and not the middle or the bottom, but I have those choices here. I can align to center, bottom. I'll keep it there. And then I'm going to click OK. And when I do that, and when I click in here, you're going to see that now the cursor is offset from this left edge. And so now when I type, you can see that it is not only offsetting it 0.125 from this edge, but it's also from the top and from the left and from the bottom, because I had all of those fields linked together. When I go to this box, notice how it's the same thing. And that's because I highlighted all of these boxes, and I'm able to affect all of these cells the same way. Okay, if I just highlighted this one cell, it would only affect this one cell, and then when I got over to this one, I'd have to do it again and again and so forth. So saves you time. Okay, again, this box, and this box, and you can see that the insets are all the same. Okay, so that's how you basically set up your way your text is going to look inside that particular field. I like that. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And if I back out here and I go to my dessert page, you can see what I did here was I set the word ice cream, and then I just filled it with some filler text in here. Okay, and you can see my insets are nice and healthy here so that this text fits in the cell nicely. Okay, it's also aligned left, and I have a ragged right edge to it. Okay, so let's set some text inside of this first cell. I'm going to go back to my example here, and I'm going to just type in the word ice cream. Okay, ice cream, and I'm going to hit my return key, and then I'm going to fill the rest of the text with placeholder text. So I'll go up to type, and I'll go down to fill with placeholder text. Oh, that's right, you can't do that. You can't fill with placeholder text inside of a table. Okay, we know we can do that with a text box, but we can't do that with a table. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to kind of draw a similar text box in size to this text box here, and I'm going to fill this text box with placeholder text. Let me just get some placeholder text here. Now this feature is available. I'll click that, fills with placeholder text. I'm going to highlight this and make this a different typeface. So let me make this something like myriad condensed, which would be nice. And type size, we'll make this say, let's make it about 10 points or so. And again, I'll add some more placeholder text. So let me just go to File and fill with placeholder text. Now, again, it fills it with more placeholder text. And now I will simply copy this. Let me just copy all of this. Command C, and then I'll come down here and I'll Command V this, and oops. I know I have too much text in here. So let me just highlight that, Command V that, and let me place this in here, and there we go. Okay, what happened is that I had too much text, and when I pasted it in here, what it did was it kind of blew out this first cell, and so don't want to do that. Let me go in here and zoom in a little bit. I'm going to make this text right here, the word ice cream, I'm going to make that the typeface chunk 5. So I'll come over to my typeface over here, and I'll come up to my typeface that I want it to be, which is chunk 5, which is a very, there it is, slab serif typeface. Okay, so there I have it. Okay, so I have my first field in here, and if I look at my dessert page over here, you can see that that kind of mimics that. Now the text is going to be white, and we'll change that later, and we'll change the background to black. Okay, but for now, let's just kind of move on here. Okay, so now that I have this set up here, just for the sake of expediency, what I'll do is I'll highlight all of this, I'll copy it, Command C, and then I'll just kind of place it in these cells. Command V is paste, so Command V, click, Command V, and now I have all of this text inside of this inside of these cells. And then what I'll do is I'll just change out the wording here. So it looks like I have cakes, pies, fruit, and yogurt. Okay, you can see that, cakes, pies, fruit, and yogurt. So I'll just go in and just kind of change this to cakes, pies, fruit, and yogurt. Okay, so I have that. I'm going to save this very quickly so that I don't lose it. I'll just save it to my desktop, and I'll call this the tables demo. Save it. And there you go. That's how you get text inside of a text box, inside of a cell. Okay. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put in the photographs inside of these cells. And the way that works is, again, also, it's just like placing a photograph in a box. It's file place. And so all we have to do is go up to the file menu and place our photographs inside these cells. Now the one thing I want to do though is that notice when I click in this cell how again the cursor is kind of flashing to the left of this, and I don't want that to happen. What I want with a photograph is I want the photo to come in and butt right up against these lines here, so I don't want any cell indents whatsoever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight across all of these boxes. Again, I'm going to go up to Table and Cell Options, Text. I'm going to make sure that the cell insets are 0, okay, all the way across. Okay, I'm going to click OK. Now when I click inside of this box, you can see that my cursor is right up against this line. Okay, that means my photo is going to fill this exact square or cell frame. Okay, so now I have on my desktop my dessert page folder, and inside my dessert page folder is my all of my photos, okay, my documents and my photos. And you can use, if you're trying this out yourself, you can use any photos just for this example. You know, this does not have to be desserts. This can be anything you want it to be. Okay, now we're going to put a photograph in this cell here. And before we do that, though, one thing I forgot is when we highlighted this whole row and we set the actual cell options to 0, okay, that's so that the photo will align to the exact edge of the cell. We also want to clip the contents to the cell. Okay, and that means that when we place our photo, it's going to clip it in that cell horizontally, and you see what I mean once we do that. So make sure that clipping contents to cell is checked. So I'll click OK. Okay, so now let's bring in a photo, and we're going to bring in the ice cream photo. I'm going to click in this cell, and I'm going to place it. So I'm going to do File, Place. I'm going to go to on my desktop is my folder over here. You can see in the lower right. And inside that folder, I have links, a links folder. And inside that, I have my ice cream photo, which is there. Now, when I click Open, what's going to happen is that photo is going to come in actual size. And you can see it's much bigger than the cell, but it clipped it horizontally. See how it stopped it right at the edge of that first cell. So obviously I'm going to have to resize this photo to make it fit that cell. I'm going to use my selection tool. I'm going to click on this photo, and you can see the end of that photo is right there. So in other words, the photo is really this big. And what I'm going to do is reduce the size of this photo by holding the Command and the Shift key down, grabbing the corner just like we resize any photo. Click and drag that photo and make it smaller. Okay, and you can see now that photo is now smaller and my table comes back. Again, I'm going to have to hold my Command and Shift key down, grab this corner, and I'm going to make it just the height of that cell. Okay, so right about there, and I'm going to let go. Okay, now I have all of this photo. We're not seeing this part of it because the cell is clipping it, so I'm going to hover my cursor over the center here. I'm going to click and hold, and you can see that gold box. The gold box represents, the yellow box represents the entire photo. And so now I'm going to slide it over to grab whatever part of that photo I want to show in this cell. Now obviously the cell is not wide enough to show the whole photo, so I'm going to have to choose a certain area of that photo. And I like this area right here where I get a little bit of the green ice cream and the pink ice cream. Okay, again, this is telling me how wide the full photo is at this height. I'm going to click off, and now I'm going to go to my next cell. Again, to place something in a cell, you need the text tool. So I'm going to grab my text tool and I'm going to insert the cursor right there. Okay, I'm going to place my next photo, which is going to be the cake photo. Again, I'm going to go up to File and Place, or Command D shortcut, and I'm going to get my cake photo, which is this top one right here, and then I'm going to open it. Okay, now again, the cake photo is much bigger than the cell itself, so it kind of screwed up my whole cell here, but we can fix that. I'm going to get on my selection tool again. I'm going to look at the full size of my photo, which I can see is right here. Okay, this is the actual full size of the photo. So I'm going to again grab my Command and Shift key, grab this area here, and I'm going to reduce it down. Oh, I'm sorry. What I did do, unfortunately, is I selected the entire table, which I don't want to do. Okay, so let me select the cake photo. Here's the cake photo right here. Okay, so this is the cake photo. And I'm going to again hold the Command and Shift key down and make this smaller to about the depth. Notice the depth of that second cell. And now my cake photo fills that second cell. Okay, again, I'll hover over the center, I'll click, I'll hold, and I'll slide over the part of the cake that I want to show. And I think I'll show kind of the back side of this cake here. Something like that. Okay, now that's positioned inside there. That looks good. And now I'll go to my third cell, which is the pies. Again, I'll do the same thing. Again, grab the text tool, click, and insert my cursor. Again, this time I'll do the shortcut key of Command D. I'll go right to my pie photo. Here's my pie photo. I'll click Open. Now you notice the pie photo came in a little bit different way. Notice how it's short here, and that's because the original photo is shorter than my cell. Okay, it's less has less height than the actual cell does, so it comes in like this. So I'm going to have to enlarge this one rather than reduce it. I'll grab my selection tool, I'll click on my pie photo, and you can see this is the width of my pie photo. And this time I'm going to hold the Command and the Shift key down, and I'm going to grab this corner and enlarge it, okay, to the height of the cell. Okay, so there it is. The actual full photo is this wide. I'm not seeing anything here, so I'm going to grab this and kind of slide it over, okay, until I can see that pie. Okay, how much of it do I want to show? Where do I want to show it? I'll just kind of, for now, I'll just kind of center this in there. I'll let go and click off. and you can see that it clipped the photo horizontally, and I enlarged the photo so that it's the height of the cell. Okay, and then you'll continue to do that for the other photos. Okay, so I'll insert my cursor here. You notice I can't insert my cursor in this cell for some reason. I'm clicking here, but my cursor is not inserted, and that's because if you look at this pie photo here, it's this wide, and so I'm gonna just take this and just kind of crop it down to the edge here, a little bit like that. And then I'm going to take my text tool and click here, and I should be able to insert my cursor, okay, because I have some space here. In other words, the photo was covering this entire cell, so it wasn't allowing me to insert my cursor there. I've inserted my cursor here. I'll do Command D. I'll go get my fruit photo. I'll click Open. And there's my fruit photo. And again, this photo happens to be less deep than my cell, so I'm going to have to enlarge this photo. I'm going to click here, select the photo, hold the Command and the Shift key down, click and drag this photo to the depth of my cell, which is right there. Grab my text tool, insert it in the last cell, and again, File, Place, and I'll go get my last photo, which is the yogurt. I'll click Open. There it is. Again, this photo is much bigger than the cell itself, so you can see how big the photo is. So I'll select it, and this time I'll hold the Command and Shift key down, and this time I will reduce the size of this to the height. Okay. And I'll position this, let's say right about there. Crop this in a little bit. Just hover over this and kind of slide this over. Tidy that box up a little bit. And there you have it. Okay, I've got all of my photos in these cells. I've got all of my text in these cells, and again, if I select the table and I move this table, everything moves as one unit, which is really what you want to do. Now here is where this gets very cool. The reason why we do things in a table is because it's very easy to make revisions. So in other words, let's say our client decided to have another row of, wanted another dessert mixed in here. And you can see that if we did this with boxes and individual text box, it would kind of be a nightmare in the sense that we would have to redesign this whole thing. In this case, we can easily accommodate another column or another row for that matter by just making a quick revision here. So instead of 5 columns, we want 6 columns, and so now with the table, the table selected. Okay, so I'm going to get on my text tool, and I'm going to click in the table somewhere. Anywhere is fine, and I'm going to go up to Table, and I'm going to go to Insert a Column. Okay, and when I do that, it's going to say how many columns do I want to insert, actually I'm going to click in this last cell here. Let me go up to Table, Insert a Column, and I'm going to insert one column to the right of this column right here, an extra column. So I'll click OK, and there is my extra column. So that's really nice, and then I can actually, if I wanted to, I could let's say highlight this text, copy it, and I'll just kind of paste that in there for another thing. It's not yogurt, but maybe it's something else. I'll do Command D, and this time, well, let's just use the same old pie photo again, and click Open, and there's my photo. And again, I'll get my selection tool, I'll click on it, I'll enlarge it to the depth of this extra cell here. There it is. I'll slide it over. Let's say that's a new photo, and let me crop it in a little bit. Okay, so there is my 6th row, okay, which I was easily able to do. And now what I can do is select the entire table, and I want to pull this whole table out here. Okay, and then I'm just going to do a Command and Shift, grab the corner of this entire table now, and just kind of reduce it down to fit my layout. Okay, so let's say that's what I want. And so what I've done very quickly is I've added another column and another photo, another block of text, and I've done that very quickly, and it's still one text box, so I can move this table where I want. Let me get rid of that. Okay. So if we look at this example here, I have 5 rows with 5 photos, but if I go to my next page here, let's say the client made a revision and they wanted 6 rows, I can click on this, and you can see now there are 6 rows here. And that was done very quickly. That revision was made very quickly using a table. Okay. Now there's a lot more things that we can do with tables in terms of rule weights and in terms of, you know, positioning and all kind of things. But I want you to try this. Those of you that have Adobe InDesign, that were able to download it, I want you to try messing around with some of these tables. Create a table, get some photos. You can download some photos from Google, and create a table of so many rows and so many columns, and insert photos in those cells, insert text in those cells, and you can see how easy it is to create a table. And a table can also be part of a more complex piece, such as this dessert page. We actually have, if I turn my guides on, you can see that I have this page split up into 3 columns. Okay, you can see the first column starts here, second column, third column, but within this column structure, within this grid structure, I have a table sitting in here that is divided up into 6 columns. So I have a variety of different types of situations going on in this page, a 5-column table inside of a 3-column page. Okay, now this is another thing that we can talk about later, but that's taking a text box and breaking that up into a number of columns. This is different than a table. This is a text box that's broken up into columns rather than creating a table. This is if you need to do a more simple division of columns and you don't need it to be as complex as a table, but we can talk about this later. In any event, that is tables. Check it out, give it a try, and I will be giving a short quiz on this table. So if you were not able to download the software, I want you to still watch this video, get an idea of how to create a table, and then there'll be a quiz on it. All right, that's all for now. Hope all of you guys are doing well, and I'll see you in the next video.